Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judy, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. I'm your host Sam Moores and this is our Week 14 preview. Wow, the season's really getting to crunch time now. You've got the final bye week of the season as well. You've got the two final teams that haven't had a bye week missing out. And then after this week, we've got full slates the rest of the season. And it's one hell of a slate coming up this week too as well. And joining me to break down it, all of the games you can watch on UK TV this week, as well as picking our winners in the rest of the games, is Mr. Olly Darcy. It's his first time on the preview pod as well, actually. He's been on all the recaps, but a bit of a different scenery this time, isn't it, Ollie?
Yeah, it's different slate, different aspect for me. I'm looking forward to it though. As you say, week 14, it's getting into the nitty gritty now, really. So it's it's going to be a good week. Awesome.
So just before we get on to Sunday, I'm going to put you on the spot, Ollie. I'm going to ask you who you think is going to win Thursday Night Football tonight between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. Go.
Oh, I mean, you can't say no to the Steelers, really. I'm just going to be as blunt as you've been dropping this question on me to say Steelers. I mean, this Patriots team is it's a bit of a dumpster fire at the moment. I don't know who's starting at QB. Have they said anything? Did they say they're going to put Zappy?
It's going to be Zappy again, I think. But they have elevated Malik Cunningham, so maybe we see him at some point. Maybe we see him. With the Patriots. You just never know.
There you are. And I mean, Pickett's going to be out, but I trust the Steelers defense to do something. Ramondre Stevenson's out as well, so it's just the wheels are falling off that Patriots wagon at the moment. So yeah, I'm backing the Steelers to stay over 500.
Yeah, I'm picking the Steelers too. I honestly, I don't even think I'm going to pick the Patriots to win another game the rest of this year, the way it's going right now.
I don't think I have either.
Even as one of the biggest Mitch Trubisky haters, I'm still going to pick him to win the game, unfortunately.
Me and you both, honestly.
Right, we'll start with the main game in the 6 p.m. window on Sunday. It is the Rams heading to Baltimore, where you've got a fun one between two of the hottest teams in football right now, you could probably say. The Ravens are 9-3. They're off a bye week as well. The Rams have won 3 straight and have put themselves in the NFC wildcard places now at 6-6. One thing that's happened today, which has sort of taken everyone by surprise, is the fact that Lamar Jackson has not practiced. He was a full participant yesterday, but he's dealing with an illness, so hopefully he plays. I imagine he does, but that is a little bit of concern for the Ravens. But we'll talk as if he was to play. It's the start of a very tough run for the Ravens this game. Actually, they've had the 5th easiest schedule this year, but every team they play for the rest of the season has a record of at least 500 or over. So we're about to see who they really are, starting with this game, and obviously they're playing for the 1 seed now as well. They're the number 2 seed at the minute behind Miami, so it's important they get off to a good start and win this game before they play Miami in a couple of weeks' time. It's not going to be straightforward though, is it, Ollie? Because the Rams team, helped by the return of Kyren Williams, has been excellent this last few weeks, hasn't it?
Well, as you were talking, I was just looking at their schedule and the results they've had. I mean, I'm going back, they went on a 22nd of October, they had started a 3-game slide, losing to the Steelers, the Cowboys, and then Stafford was out against the Packers, but they looked dreadful. And then they grinded to that win against the Seahawks, and all of a sudden their offense has just clicked. They've just gone into a different gear. Stafford's back and he's looking very good. Kupp's back and he's looking as good as he's ever done. Puka Nacua, I don't know where they found him or what, but he's just been sublime. And that defense now is starting to roll now. They've the last 3 games under 20 points. They haven't conceded over 20 points in the last 3 games. So as you said about the Ravens, you're going to find out what they're doing, what they're about, what the Ravens are about. And you're going to find out what the Rams are about as well. Defensively, if you're looking at EPA, they've been just middle of the road. Offensively, they're slowly getting back just above the median. So yeah, they're trending upwards, like you said. They're one of the hottest teams, I'd say, in the NFC as well. So for the Ravens, it's going to be a real interesting one.
For sure, and you mentioned that Rams defense as well. They've played excellently this year. When you think about who they have, before the season we were all joking that this is the no-name defense and Aaron Donald. That's literally it. They have nobody on that defense. Jordan Fuller maybe, but he's been hurt at points, and that's it. Like this Rams defense had no talent before the start of this year, so they've done very well actually. They've got a tough task in the Ravens offense, of course, with Lamar Jackson and the receiving options. Obviously, there's no Mark Andrews, which is a little bit of a sign of good news for the Rams defense, but they've still got many weapons. For me, the battle of this game is the Rams offense against the Ravens defense, because as you mentioned earlier, they've been great on offense. They've scored 36 and 37 in their past 2 games, and they edged out Seattle before that. When Kyron Williams came back, obviously, as you said, 2 top receivers, one of the best running backs in the league this season too, and Stafford, who has come back from injury this year and is having an excellent year. But the Ravens defense have been the best defense in the league in a lot of categories, and 2 of them that stand out to me are obviously the fact they have allowed a league best 14.4 points per game, and they've also generated the most sacks per game of any team this season as well, and that's without having a star pass rusher. They don't have Myles Garrett, they don't have a Nick Bosa. It's just a team effort, and they've done excellent at getting pressure this year. And Mike McDonald, the defensive coordinator who came over from Michigan with Jim Harbaugh a couple of years ago, is doing a fantastic job with his defense, and he's getting head coaching shouts for a reason. This one's just going to be so close, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, those stats you thrown to me about the Ravens defense is just you can see. Well, I mean, they've done it for years. They've just drafted and developed in the defense so many years, and even they've never had big pass rushing names, and then they come up with this unbelievable pass rush. They can just collapse the pocket and just destroy any offensive team out there. So it will be a real battle to see what the Rams can do. As you said, this defense, EPA wise, they are second best behind the Browns, and I can't see why they wouldn't be above them. As you said, they're leading in a hell of a load of categories. So if they can push this Rams offensive line, which has been improving, which is a big reason why the Rams are playing as good as they are, you would not bet against these Baltimore Ravens. And it's a big game for them because they've got to chase Miami. They are chasing Miami. So every game is just their route to the 1 seed. So the pressure is almost on them for this game. The Rams, yes, they're 6-6, and they want to stay in that wild card spot. But for the Ravens, a lost game is massive in that battle for the 1 seed.
Yeah, for sure. The spread here is 7.5 points. It's over, basically an entire score, which is quite a big spread. I'm going to pick the Ravens to win this one, but I think if I was to bet on this one, I might put an acca on it. If I was to bet, I'd probably bet the Rams to have to at least keep that within that 7.5 points. I've got a feeling it'll be closer than maybe people think it will be. But give me the Ravens to win this one.
I'd be the exact same as you, covering the spread with the Rams, but giving the Ravens, because at the end of the day, the defense, I think, will come up with a couple of plays that will turn the game on its head. And Lamar Jackson is still playing brilliant football as well. So I think they can, even if it is a little bit of a dogfight with the Rams, I feel like they can keep neck and neck with them.
Yeah, for sure. And also with the added fact that the Ravens are playing some really tough teams the next couple of weeks as well. If Lamar is going to win MVP, which with it not being, there's no winner right now at all. Anyone can come from anywhere. So these 5 games could be huge for Lamar Jackson as well. Right, we'll go over to the rest of the 6 p.m. games now. We'll talk through them a little bit and pick our winners pretty quickly. And we'll start with an all NFC South tie where the Panthers go into New Orleans. And the Saints are really in need of a win here, because lose this and they could be 2.5 games back behind the Falcons. Win this and they could be in a 3-way 6-7 tie at the top of the NFC South. So this is just huge for them. We don't know who's going to start in this game, whether it's Jameis Winston or Derek Carr. Derek Carr is still in concussion protocol as it stands, but he is practicing, so that there is that. So we won't know until probably Saturday. I don't think to start the game. But I'm probably leaning towards Jameis. I think just because Carr also has taken shoulder and rib hits this season as well, so you probably want to just keep him out and make sure he's fully healthy. But unfortunately, the injuries in offense don't stop there for the Saints. Taysom Hill, Rashid Shaheed, and Chris Olave all didn't practice today, which is not good at all. No. You don't practice on a Thursday, that means you're probably not going to play. Now, for Olave, it was illness. He did play last week, but he is ill. So again, with Lamar, we don't know what's going to happen with an illness. You just never know. But yeah, obviously Hill and Shaheed are two of the Saints' most used weapons. So I'm going to be bold. I'm going to pick Carolina to win this game. I just got a feeling, it just, they almost, they covered against the Bucs last week. They only lost by 3 points. And this is a very, very banged up Saints team. They lost Marcus May to IR today as well. So yeah, give me Carolina, new coach, but I got a feeling they're gonna win this game.
Yeah, I can't go for the Panthers, is what I'm going to say. Yes, they've got a new coach. Yes, they look really good. They looked a lot better last week without Frank Reich. But the Saints, they have too much there. They can get at the quarterback still. And this Carolina O-line is probably the worst in the league, or one of the worst. So it's going to be too much for the Panthers. They've only won one all season. That's for a reason. Yeah, the Saints may be a little bit banged up, but yeah, there probably will be a couple of shocks to this week because of the slate and the way it is, but that game is not going to be one of them. I think give me the Saints in this one.
Fair play. I tell you what, Dennis Allen, if you are going to save your job as head coach of the Saints, your defense, you win this game with your defense. That's the way to do it. The way it's going, because this game is absolutely huge for your Saints team. Okay, we'll go over to New York now, where the Jets welcome the Texans. The Texans are favoured by 3.5, and they're coming off a huge win over the Broncos, and will be confident going into this one too, because with Trevor Lawrence maybe out for a few weeks, we'll talk about that later. They will fancy their chance at the division. The Jets have announced that Zach Wilson is back as starter after benching him a few weeks ago, although there was a weird rumour going around that he didn't want to play. So it just shows how much of a joke the Jets have been offensively this season. Even though the Techs are unfortunately about Tank Darwin for the rest of the season, and maybe Dalton Schultz in this game, I don't think he's going to be ready for this game yet. I still back them to win here because this Jets team has just been horrific, and it'll be close because of the Jets defense and again with Houston's injuries. But I just think they've got too much. Yeah, they've got too much to lose to this Jets team, surely.
Yeah, I'm surprised it's at 3.5. I'd be all over that spread, to be perfectly honest with you. It's sad what is going on with this Jets team offensively. Like, they brought in Rodgers, what came out fourth play, but even I don't think he'd be able to resurrect what's going on. He'll be able to do some things, but he's not got all the tools. The Jets have just they've just trended downwards so spectacularly. Texans all day on this one.
Okay, going over to the second all NFC South game. This one is huge. One of the most meaningful games of the week. One of the most meaningful games of the season, all season as well, because whoever wins this will lead the NFC South going into next week's games. Atlanta are in the lead currently, and they beat the Bucs 16-13 in week 7. But if both go to 6-7 and Tampa Bay win this game, it would make a fascinating finish, especially if the Saints also win. The Falcons have won their last 2 and have been a more balanced offense recently, getting Kyle Pitts involved, getting really starting to run the ball more. But they also haven't been scoring points still, and that is an issue for them. The Bucs, well, they started 3-0, but they've won 2 of their last 8, but. On the other hand, they have also had a significantly harder schedule than the Falcons have faced. So it's getting easier for the Bucs now. So they've certainly got a chance too. They have to win this game to stay in touch with the Falcons. So I'm just going to pick them. I feel like they probably want it more, but I do think it will be as close as the last game. A 3-point game or so. But give me Tampa Bay to win away from home here.
I'd pick Tampa as well. They've looked. Out of all the NFC South teams, they probably have looked the most competent from what I've seen of them. The Falcons, on the other hand, really have not. I really don't know how they are leading this division.
I know,
with some of the stuff they've had, some of the stuff they've done is just, it's ridiculous how they are leading that NFC South. So I'm going Tampa. I've said to you that I like Arthur Smith as a head coach, and like because what he did with Tennessee, it was not pretty football, but it got them wins. And it's giving Atlanta wins, but they are by no means as good as what they were in Tennessee. So I don't think it will last. And I think, Tampa on the road are going to get a win when it matters the most. They've got a lot more in them than the Falcons do.
Oh yeah, I've been saying it for the last couple of weeks. I really think there's a chance that all 4 NFC South teams have a different coach next year. Even a team that wins the division, I think they could still fire their coach, especially if they have a losing record. I think is entirely possible. Yeah. We've seen that Miami fired Brian Flores after winning 10 games a couple of years ago. It does happen. So I really wouldn't be surprised. Okay, we'll go over to an all NFC North tie then. Loads of division games this week, which this end of the season we're starting to get loads now. And I'm kind of looking forward to this one. The Lions going into Chicago, because despite it being a game between a 9-3 team and a 4-8 team, the Lions haven't exactly been convincing lately, especially on defense, and the Bears seem to have turned it around recently. So it's going to be a really interesting game. The game 3 weeks ago was very close. Chicago were really unfortunate not to win because they had about 40 minutes of the football. They were on top for a lot of the game, and Detroit won 31-26. I'm going to pick Detroit again, even though it's at Soldier Field. But I do think Chicago will keep it close again. And I am tempted by the under at 3.5 points. I think it'll be really close. And I think, honestly, it could go either way. But for the Lions, they have to win this one to stay in touch with the 1 seed.
I think this is where teams that are the Detroit Lions that are 8-4 will turn up, because they've got the better. It's, as you said, week 14. It's crunch time. This is where the teams are. You find out their identity, and this Lions team just missed out last year. Probably deserved to go into the playoffs last year with the way they finished the season. They've hit a little blip. I think they will come out of it. I've watched a bit of the Lions this year, and they've looked. Thanksgiving, they did not look brilliant, but a few in the early season, especially, they just look fantastic. As you said, the Bears they're getting it on. I don't know what's happening, but they are turning it around a little bit. I don't think it will be enough for them to beat the Lions this week, let alone make the playoffs for them. But it's nice to see them turn it around a little bit. I still think they need to get rid of Eberflus personally, because it's not doing them any good at all. They're getting better, but not enough to beat the Lions this Sunday.
Yeah, fair play. We'll go over to a weird game in the AFC. Between the 7-5 Colts and the 6-6 Bengals. It's a game with huge playoff implications, but yet it's being played with 2 backup quarterbacks. It's really weird. If the Colts win this one, they've got a fantastic chance of getting into the postseason at 8-5. If the Bengals win, then you've got one head of a dogfight for the 3 wildcard spots in the AFC, because loads of teams will be on 7-6. Make things really interesting. And Joe, I'm tempted to pick the Bengals here. The Bengals are favourites as well. I thought they were really impressive on offense last week. Yeah, they really are by 1.5 points. Yeah, I thought they were impressive against the Jags on Monday Night Football. I have to say that, and they're at home too. So yeah, give me the Bengals to win this game. Gosh, spice things up in the AFC wildcard race.
It really would, and if they do win, that wildcard race just becomes just almighty. I've loved the Colts all season. I've spoke to you about Steichen and the job he's done with Gardner Minshew, and I think he's been fantastic. So I'm probably gonna. I will pick the Colts on this one, because I like what they're doing defensively. I think they've been fantastic as well. They've been pretty much middle of the road all season, but they're finding ways to win games. I'm not sold on Browning yet. Yes, they looked good Monday Night Football. This is where it matters. Sunday, 6 p.m. slate for us, 1 p.m. for them, 1 p.m. slate. Can he do it in Cincinnati? I don't think they will against this Colts defense. So I'd pick Indy for this one.
Yeah, a Colts win would certainly put pressure on the Jags, because if the Jags lose this game, there's a chance you could have 3 teams in the AFC South at 8-5. So suddenly this AFC South race has just come alive out of nowhere now. And that is because of Trevor Lawrence. I was going to say before today, another one. This is another game that a few weeks ago was looking really tasty, Jags Browns, and it still is very meaningful, but it's lost its shine with it potentially being CJ Beathard against Joe Flacco, who will start even if Dorian Thompson-Robinson clears concussion protocol. It will be Joe Flacco, but Trevor Lawrence was seen throwing at practice today. So maybe he recovers from his high ankle, but look, he might not play. They might hold him out a week, but he was in red jersey. He was there in practice today, so it does spice things up a little bit. It's still unclear whether he plays or not. But either way, the Jags need to win this game to keep Houston and the Colts away, as I said, because they're both at 7-5. And on the other hand, after the loss to the Rams last week, the Browns are clinging onto a playoff spot as well. This is just huge. It doesn't sound good for the Browns on Amari Cooper. He took a big hit last week. He's in concussion protocol and is also dealing with a rib injury too. So he probably isn't going to play. But on the other hand as well, Christian Kirk will miss this one for the Jags after the muscle injury he took on Monday night. So it's just so tight. I think I'm still going to pick the Jags even if Lawrence doesn't play. I just fancy an upset. It's not really an upset when you've got 2 backup quarterbacks. Anything could happen. But the Browns are favoured by 3.5 in this one. But no, I fancy the Jags, especially if Lawrence obviously does play.
No, I agree with you. I said when Watson went down to you and some others that I don't see the Browns making the playoffs. I really don't, because since Watson went, offensively they look really on and off for the whole season, even with Chubb. And without Chubb, they were struggling even more. And then they've lost Watson. So they have really struggled with injuries. And all of a sudden their defense is just letting slip just a little bit.
Well, Myles Garrett being hurt doesn't really help either. He didn't. I mean, he played, but last week he didn't have an impact at all. I think he played limited snaps as well. So there is that is a big factor. Obviously, if you sort of can neutralise a 50% Myles Garrett, then that's how you beat the Browns pretty much.
That's what you need to do. I mean, they shipped 36 to the Rams last week, 29 to the Broncos the week before. And Flacco looked pretty good last week. I did like what I saw, but I'm gonna go with the Jags. I'm gonna stick my neck out here and still think that the Browns are gonna struggle to make the playoffs, even with Flacco at the helm. So yeah, I take the Jags on this one.
Awesome. That concludes the 6 p.m. slate, which means it's time to break down the big game in the late window. I'm of course talking about one of the biggest football rivalries in the past few seasons. It's getting renewed in Kansas City this Sunday when the Bills head to Arrowhead. But this time it may be more meaningful than ever in the regular season, certainly because there's loads on the line for both teams, and it's not the 1 seed. And that's the difference here. Buffalo arrive at Arrowhead at 6-6 and on the outside looking in on the playoffs with a tough schedule still to play. And Kansas City are in a bit of a crisis too, having lost 3 of the last 5 games. Now we'll start with the Bills. They've been a better team with Joe Brady calling offensive plays rather than Ken Dorsey. But with their tough schedule coming up, they've still got to play a lot of teams that have got winning records coming up too. They've left it late to try and squeeze back in to the playoff mix. It is a boost for them that Dawson Knox is back this week, though. That is huge for them. So that's good news. And the Chiefs as well. And as a result, they've of their sort of offensive inconsistencies the last couple of weeks. They've dropped from the 1 seed to the 3 seed, and their schedule is getting tougher as well. You've got 2 of the historical offensive heavy teams who have contested a few shootouts over the year. They're meeting in the final quarter of the season as that begins to try and fix their problems. This is just so fascinating, isn't it, Ollie?
I was before we started this, I was looking into the EPA, and the fact that this Bills team are 6-6 is baffling to me. They are ahead of Miami in EPA on offense and defense, and yet they're 6-6.
Turnovers. That's it.
That's the problem they've had. They haven't been able to keep hold of the ball, and like you were saying, offensively they started so slowly. But this team and the roster they have, especially on offense, it's just dynamic. It can win you so many games. I think that's what is boosting them up in the EPA. turnovers have killed them. Yes, they really have. Chiefs, on the other hand, you expect to see the Chiefs in that top right hand, at least in the right hand side offensively on EPA. But if anything, their defense is really helping them. Before their defense has been, you were talking about it.
I love it, man. They're getting Nick Bolton back this week as well. They could get Nick Bolton back, which is just even better. Add him back in there as well. And I love what Spags is doing, man. So good.
Well, they lost in Sunday night. They lost another one of their linebackers. I can't remember his name.
Drew Tranquil.
Tranquil, that's the one. Drew Tranquil went out. Missing 2 mid linebackers was tough for them. It was really tough. And they lost Justin Reed as well, I think they did. So it was a big hit on them. But their defense has been fantastic. And offensively, it's slowly regressing. I saw a good tweet about this. Mahomes is trying to make it work with only one star weapon. And like with Kelsey, and that's it.
And Kelsey's not been great this year either.
No. But it was similar to what Aaron Rodgers was doing in Green Bay when everyone was like, oh, they need to draft a wide receiver here. They've got no one to throw to. And it's hard to do. And I think Mahomes is finding that out at the moment. It is quite hard to do. So
he's still playing great. That's the thing. He's still playing better than most quarterbacks, but he's not playing MVP level Mahomes level. That's the difference, isn't it? No,
that's why the Chiefs are not at the 1 seed. That's why they're on the outside looking in. So as you say, it just sets up this matchup so perfectly. Both teams they've got so much to fight for, and they're not playing their best football, and this will propel them so much, either team that wins.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you mentioned the Chiefs' defense. Obviously, that's going to be a huge test for this new Bills offense they're running after firing Ken Dorsey. But the Bills are coming off a bye week, so obviously they have had more time to prepare for this game, and they did look good before the 2 games before this game as well. So after this one, you'd like to think we'll know a bit more about what the 2 teams are, because this game is just absolutely massive. Both teams have always been there or thereabouts. The Chiefs were 6-4 a few years back, and they won the Super Bowl. So we can't really overlap too much because they've been there, done it before. We're expecting both teams to give it a real go the rest of the season for sure. And Buffalo have been a playoff team all but 1 year since 2017. So they've been perennial. Playoff teams the last sort of decade or so. But they've both been so inconsistent this year, and it's so difficult to pick a winner because of that. I'm going to go for the Chiefs. I just feel there's less noise around them than there is Buffalo. They've had the Josh Allen drama with his turnovers. They've had obviously the firing coaches. They've had the Stephon Diggs drama over the last year. They've now got Von Miller's drama going on as well, that's quite him getting arrested or having an arrest warrant. So that's going to be a distraction too. And they're in Arrowhead. They're going to Arrowhead to play the Chiefs. Coming off a loss as well, that just has Andy Reid game written all over it. So for me, give me the Chiefs, and that's even if Isaiah Pacheco doesn't play, because he hasn't practiced today, so that would be a big loss to the Chiefs. But even with that, even if he doesn't play, give me the Chiefs. I just got a feeling this is just an Andy Reid game, because this is when he steps up, and that's why he's the best coach in football.
Yeah, I watched the Chiefs. I watched the whole game. I watched Sunday Night Football, and that was not the Chiefs of 2, 3, 4 years ago at all. Defensively, yes, they look okay. They look pretty good. And they have been fantastic all season. But offensively, there is really something missing. They had a couple of drives where you're like, oh, it's Mahomes. They're moving the ball really nicely. And they'll have a couple on Sunday. But the Bills' defense has always been really, really nice with McDermott at the helm.
They've always played the Chiefs so well as well, obviously, because in regular season as well, they've had the Chiefs' number. The Chiefs have beaten them in the postseason a couple of times, but in the regular season, the Bills have had their number. So there is that to consider too.
And offensively, they're starting to click. So I feel like this is a game that the Bills will come in. They'll come into Arrowhead, and I think they will win it. They'll get themselves above 500, and it will kickstart their season. They will re-engage their season. And I don't think if they get back onto that level that we know they can play at, I don't think any team's going to want to face a rolling Bills team in the postseason.
They might sneak in. That's the thing. If they lose this one, they're probably out of it. Or they've got Dallas to come up to. If they got the next 2 games are Chiefs, Dallas for them. So I think they have to win one of them to get in the playoffs. Otherwise, they're going to go 9-8 probably, and they're or something like that, and they're going to struggle. They have to win at least one of those games. So I don't think it'll be this one, but I can see why you've gone for that. Right, we'll pick through the rest of the late window before getting onto the primetime games later in the week, and we'll pick our winner in the Vikings Raiders game first. It's not often we have a late window as good as this actually. It's a bigger slate, and and this game between a 6-6 team and a 5-7 team is suddenly just not seen as that great. Which when a couple of weeks ago we'd love to have this game in the late window. The Raiders are pretty much out of it. They're on to next year already. They're just seeing what they are for the future with an interim coach in place. The Vikings, on the other hand, need to win this game to keep the playoff spot. It looked like they may be a shoo-in a month or so ago, but they've dropped their last 2 games before their bye week. So actually both teams are off a bye as well, which is another interesting thing to look at. For the Vikings, they are getting Justin Jefferson back, which for my fantasy team I love. I mean, I've got some playoff matchups this week in fantasy, and the one I drafted Jefferson number 1 overall in. He's back for, so I'm loving that. He's coming back right at the right time for me, and obviously I'm looking forward to seeing him on the field once more as well. But I'm actually going to pick the Raiders here. Raiders away win. The Raiders are at home, and that's why I'm going to pick them. Sorry, they've impressed me in the last few games since firing Josh McDaniels, and as the home team as well, I feel like they could shock. The Vikings are favoured away from home by 2.5, but now again, I've watched the Raiders game really recently in the Dolphins game, and I thought Aiden O'Connell looked efficient. I thought Aiden looked okay. I don't see much difference between Aiden O'Connell and Jimmy Garoppolo. So for me, and that's as a rookie quarterback as well. So for me, give me the Raiders to upset the Vikings.
I absolutely agree with you. I think the Raiders are, as you say, they are going. It's an upset. I don't know if you would call it an upset because they've got a lesser record. But if anything, I'd say they're playing the better football at the moment with Pierce at the helm and with O'Connell. Some of O'Connell's plays have looked fantastic. The sample that we've had, it's not been perfect. It's never going to be perfect, but it's looked brilliant. It has looked really good. Whereas on the other hand, this Vikings team is trending downwards. I mean, they laid a complete egg on Monday Night Football against the Bears. It was a complete egg. They're trending downwards. I said this in the preview, even when they had Kirk Cousins in our preview magazine, that there's just something about these Vikings that I just couldn't put my finger on. And even with Kirk Cousins at the helm, they weren't looking 100%. Dobbs came in, he had that first game, and it was all like, Josh Dobbs mania. And now it's. I like Josh Dobbs. He's been really good this year, but it's not working. It didn't work on Monday Night Football. They're coming off a bye. Both teams are, but I like the Raiders at home as well with O'Connell. I think I'd rather have O'Connell than Dobbs. So yeah, give me the Raiders as well.
Yeah, Josh Dobbs has been lucky with turnovers this year. He's been quite aggressive with the football, and he's been quite lucky in that game against the Bears. That's how he's been playing all season. So he's been lucky with his legs too. He's been great, but as a thrower, he's not been great at all. So that's another factor as to why I picked the Raiders. Okay, we'll go over to a huge NFC West game now between the Niners and the Seahawks. Massive for Seattle. They've lost 3 straight, and they now head into their biggest rival's turf, aiming to go back to above 500. But the Niners have been the best team of football in the second half of the season so far, and they're going to be very difficult to beat. The Niners won the game in Seattle on Thanksgiving 2 weeks ago, and I think they'll win again because I just think that injuries have just derailed the Seattle season, unfortunately. They've got their offensive line back, but skill position players have been injured. Kenneth Walker's still questionable in this one. Don't know if he's going to suit up or not. It's just... I just don't feel confident about them at all. They're just stuck where I don't think they're good enough to get a new I don't think they're bad enough to get a new quarterback, but I also don't think they're a playoff team. So they're, we'll see what they do over the off season. But Gino this year hasn't been the Gino he was last year, and he's not really added anything to the team, unfortunately. But a very young team, and they'll be a contender for in the future. But right now, I think they, I think the sort of fairy tale's over, and I think the Niners will probably put an end to their playoff hopes this week. I think
it's the it's the worst time to play the 49ers, if there is a possibility to have a worse time to play the 49ers. I mean, they just whooped the Dallas Cowboys, who everyone was thinking it was the Eagles, I beg your pardon, who everyone thought,
they whooped the Cowboys as well. They've whooped both of them.
And they did that to the Cowboys as well. They're just on fire at the moment, aren't they? I mean, Purdy is succeeding all expectations. Everyone was like a game manager quarterback with Shanahan would be perfect, and he's doing a little bit more. I know you're not keen on him on the old MVP vote, but I wouldn't be either.
He doesn't add anything. That's the thing. He's just he's there.
Yeah. But he's making throws. He's doing things correctly, and when you
but every QB would. Yeah, there's a stat. I think there's a stat where like his receivers are the most open in the league, out of any receiving core in the entire league. So I think literally any quarterback would succeed in that system. But he is playing well. I just don't think he's an MVP. That's my thing. Yeah.
I know. I agree with you, but you've got to put it on him, and he is putting them on him. Mm-hmm. So he's making those throws. But when you've got Kittle, Samuel, McCaffrey, it's just silly. And then
Debo's healthy now, and he's looking like the old Debo Samuel now. He's healthy. Last few weeks, he's been excellent. So good.
Yeah. And then and defensively, they didn't have a Fanga, and they just looked insane. So you wouldn't bet against them. I'm not going to pick against them at all, especially at home. But it's Niners all day. Niners all day.
Awesome. Let's finish the late window with a AFC West game between the Broncos and the Chargers. The Chargers, surprisingly, are favourites in this one, and I don't really know why. The Broncos are looking to stay in touch with the wildcard race. It's not going to be straightforward at all. It's a division game and all that. But I just can't believe that the Chargers aren't are favourites in this one, especially with how bad they've looked, especially on offense recently as well. Their defense has been the best unit on the team this year, and that's a defense that gave up almost 700 yards I think it was 500 yards to the Dolphins in week 1. They looked horrific at the start of the season, but Staley's turned it around, and I'm actually starting to feel quite sorry for him because it's not been Brandon Staley's fault they've lost. They've been bad this year. It's really not, and he's going to be the sacrificial lamb. I've been saying for the last couple of weeks, don't give the head coach a job to Kellen Moore, because if anything, the Chargers offense is getting worse, and it's a worst year for Justin Herbert, worst year for Eckler, and that's behind a really good offensive line. At least, obviously they've got receiver injuries, but that doesn't stop their run game from being. If anything, your run game should be better. You should be leaning on it more, and it's just not been the case. I think they're looking at giving more snaps to Joshua Kelly this week because of how Eckler's been playing recently. So I think I don't see a situation at the start of the season where Austin Eckler would lose snaps. I never saw that happen. I thought so. It just shows where the Chargers are at. I just think they're a hot mess, and Denver play really efficient football. They're not pretty, but they play efficient football, and that's why I picked them to. That's my bet of the week. Broncos to beat the Chargers. I put loads of money on it. That's it for me. Give me the Broncos.
Yeah, I'm all over it. I can't believe that after just beating the Patriots 6-0, that they're favourites to beat the Broncos. I mean, the Broncos, as you say, it's not pretty, and they start the season atrociously, but somehow they're just playing the correct football to win games. Like you said with Staley and the Chargers defense, to be fair, the Broncos and Vance Joseph, they're trending upwards defensively. They're playing quite nice now. And Sean Payton is now finally getting into his groove with Russell, with Wilson. I like the Broncos here as well over the Chargers 100%. The Broncos they're moving nicely, and they're Denver for me on this one as well.
Awesome, and that brings us to Sunday Night Football. Probably the game of the season. This game it's absolutely ginormously important, man. It's of course the Eagles going into Dallas. The Cowboys are 3.5 point favourites in this one. Obviously, being at home is a big factor in that. And after the Eagles lost to the Niners last week, the NFC, especially the NFC East title race now between these two teams is now super tasty. This game may be the biggest Cowboys game in years. This is. All eyes are on them. It's big for both teams, of course, but Dallas have just constantly disappointed. They've always especially when they got to the postseason, this is, if they're going to win a Super Bowl, right, this is their best opportunity. This is their best team. They've got their quarterbacks playing at, in my opinion, I think he is the MVP of football other than Tyreek Hill. Right now, I think he's playing at an outstanding level. It's their best team since 2016. The last time they got the 1 seed was 2016, before going one and done in the divisional round to your Green Bay Packers. And all they're hearing is, who have you beat? What a game this is to shut a lot of people up, isn't it, Ollie? Because Dallas, all they're hearing is, who have you beat? Who have you beat? You only win games at home. This is at home, but this is against one of the best teams in football. It's a team that's 10-2, your division rival. This game is just so big for the Dallas Cowboys, isn't it?
Did this game get flexed for?
No, it's always been there. What a
it has. I mean,
yeah.
Even so, the NBC would be silly to not flex it. I mean, what a game you have in prospect. They were advertising it last week, and you were like, oh yeah, big game. It was Eagles losing to the 49ers in that way last week. Just sets this game up perfectly. As you were talking about Dallas, they've had a load of criticism about who they've beat, they're playing away from home, what have you. But if you dive into the stats and look at it, it's unbelievable. If you told me before the season that Dakota Prescott would be your MVP vote, I'd be laughing at you. But what he's second,
I had him in the guide. I had him at QB 19.
Yeah.
And after last year, I was so discouraged after last year because he looked horrific last year. Obviously, he didn't even finish the season. I think played 12 games, and he still led the league in picks. Last year, he was really bad, and that same guy is now, in my opinion, my MVP. It's mental, isn't it?
Oh, it's bizarre. Like he's thrown 26 TDs, which I don't know. Does that lead the league?
It does lead the league. Yeah.
And then 6 interceptions as well. He's looking after the football, which he never usually did. He's second in EPA, so he's making the right throws, right time, and he's making things happen. And yeah, he's come on leaps and bounds this season, which I don't know. I wouldn't say I didn't want it, but I was never high on Dak Prescott at all, like you were. So I mean, like to see him there is nice for the Cowboys and nice for him, but. He's above Hurts, who I was still calling for him to be MVP. He's just below Purdy. He's above Mahomes, Tua. He's playing so well. Mm-hmm. So for this team, for the Cowboys, it is their biggest game. As you said, it could be the biggest game they've had in a long, long time.
Obviously, it'd be 30 years since nearly about 30 years since the last Super Bowl. So it's been coming for the Cowboys. Win this, of course, and they'll be level with the Eagles at 10-3. And if San Francisco and Detroit win, then you have 4 teams at 10-3 in the NFC, which is just mental. That's so tight.
Yeah.
The Eagles came into this week with great news yesterday because Dallas Goedert is back. He's fully participating in practice. That's mental. It's great news for Jalen Hurts because they were clearly missing something last week. You could tell. As mentioned, it's like an MVP off between Hurts and Dak. Obviously, they're both in the top 3 of the odds, and if either of them are probably influential in a win here, I think they'll be certainly favourite and might win MVP, might they, Ollie? Because that's the way these awards are won.
Yeah. It's so close. We've been talking about this MVP battle. You just don't know who is going to win it, and it could hinge on this game. There's like 6 people
that honestly we've talked about a different person each week at this point.
I know it's ridiculous. It could hinge on this game. It really could. It could matter about injuries, what have you. But the thing that will seal this game for me, the biggest battle, is both defenses. Mm-hmm. Both offenses are playing at similar level, but defensively, the Eagles, who people were probably ranking number 1 before the season, aren't near that level at all, and Dallas are just flying at the moment. But this is where a Dallas defense usually capitulates. Sunday Night Football, biggest game. They've done it in the playoffs multiple times when they've been top 5 defenses, and it's just fallen off a cliff. And this is where the Eagles will fly up. The pun not intended, but they will fly up and they will be there and play their best football.
Yeah. So
what they like on injuries? I haven't checked the injuries for the Eagles team.
So Eagles I think Fletcher Cott's going to play. I think Lane Johnson's going to play as well, and obviously Goddard's back as well, so they're pretty healthy. Cowboys as well, they're pretty healthy. So it's both teams at full strength. Obviously they're without Trayvon Diggs. He's barely played all year, obviously because he got injured right at the start of the year. But yeah, I think it's very, very. Both teams are pretty much full strength as well, which is why it's just so fascinating. Like you have the number 3 offense. In Dallas, they've had a much easier schedule, of course, than the Eagles, but they do face the toughest remaining schedule. So right now, we're going to find out who the Cowboys are the rest of this year. And they're going up against an Eagles defense, as you mentioned, Ollie, that has all the talent in the world, but it was absolutely torched last week after the catch by Deebo Samuel and by Christian McCaffrey as well. And it is quite surprisingly 26th in points per game allowed. Yeah, this Eagles defense it's not been what it was last year by any means. And their offense has been. Great. Obviously, having the most unstoppable play in the league does help that because the revelation of the touch pitch, whatever you want to call it, it's such a big advantage on short, larger situations compared to anything. And a lot of teams struggle in the red zone in short yardage situations. So it is a huge advantage. But obviously, I wouldn't ban it. I think it's genius. So but it is the most unstoppable player in the league for sure. But that the Eagles' offense. Going up against the Dallas defense that is so dominant, especially at home as well. It feels like they've scored about 10 touchdowns for their defense this year. Obviously, Deron Bland, 6 or 7 pick sixes. He's got 8 interceptions on the year as well. They've had fumble recoveries for touchdowns. They've had kick returns for touchdowns. They've had blocked kick field goals for touchdowns. They're just so opportunistic in AT&T Stadium, and it's just what makes this game so fascinating. I'm going to pick Dallas, and I'm picking Dak to have another strong game here. As I said, I think he wins MVP unless Tyreek Hill gets 2,000 yards if he wins this game, and that would actually be the 7th straight home win over the Eagles too. So it just shows how big of an advantage that AT&T Stadium is. So give me Dallas to win this game.
Oh, you flip a coin and you don't know who you choose. I'm going to spice it up and go different and say the Eagles. I really am. I think. After last week, it was embarrassing. It was Fox's only game, wasn't it? It was the 4:25 slate, and they got whooped by the 49ers. So I'm thinking of a bounce back game. I'm still high on Jalen Hurts to win MVP. I said it last year. I think he should have won it. I think this year he could still win it. I think this will be a game where it's a get it right game for the Eagles again after last week. And they'll show what they're capable of, and I think they've got it this week.
Yeah, just bring it on! I can't wait to watch this game. Same feeling I had last week with the San Francisco game. I just can't wait to watch this game because it's I think these 3, obviously Dallas, Philly, and San Francisco are the 3 best teams in football. I think so. Obviously in the NFC as well, but in the entirety of football, I think the AFC, maybe the Dolphins match it, and they're not fully healthy. So yeah, give me those 3 teams as the 3 best in the NFL. Going over to the Dolphins now, they're part of a Monday Night Football doubleheader. This one is the one that will get Buck and Aikman. The Packers Giants game is on ABC, so that will get the team that normally calls college games. And the Dolphins that go into this game against the Titans now in possession of the 1 seed in the AFC. They're aiming to win a 6th home game of the year and strengthen their case for the AFC to go through South Beach, which is one of the best, if not the hardest stadiums to play in because of the heat. Especially if you're a visiting team as well, because you've got the sun coming at you on the sideline. It's the home field advantage the Dolphins have. It is just mental in Florida. That being said as well, the Titans haven't been great on the road this year, and the Dolphins are undefeated at home. They've been a top 5 offense and defense in the second and third quarters of the season, and I can't see that changing as we get to the 4th quarter. So give me the Dolphins to win this game. The spread here is 13.5 points. It's a massive spread, but I think they might hit the over here. Give me the Dolphins. Give me the Dolphins to win this game. Again, one of the best teams in football, and they're playing against a team that haven't won an away game this season.
I was not going to hesitate in picking Miami. I might hesitate on that spread. 13.5 is a gigantic spread. But I mean, when you've got the offense that Mike McDaniel is got his hands on, and when Tyreek Hill is performing at almost MVP level, at MVP level, and he could go on and win it as a wide receiver, you can't bet against Miami at home. Tennessee, I didn't even know they hadn't won an away game. So it's been a really bizarre season for Tennessee. They've really struggled. And yeah, it's not going to change for them, unfortunately. It's going to be the Miami show, I think, on Monday Night Football for them.
Awesome. And then we'll finish off with the second Monday night game between your Packers and the Giants. The Packers are in the national spotlight again after beating the Chiefs on Sunday Night Football at Lambeau last week. And they are now in control of their own destiny, being the 7th seed with a favourable schedule coming up. Get through this, and I think they're well on the way to the playoffs. I think they will do it as well, which I'm sure you'll love to hear, Ollie. and that's with... it does sound like Christian Watson isn't playing this week right now, but for teams on Monday Night Football, this was their first day of practice, so a lot of times someone won't play on a Wednesday, won't practice on a Wednesday, and they might be limited on a Thursday, which means they probably are trending towards playing. So we won't know about Christian Watson until tomorrow, but right now, Vaz Fabregas with a hamstring as well, I think he probably isn't going to play. Even with that, obviously, I'm still picking Green Bay. But I do think it'll be closer to the 6.5 points that they're favoured by. I think it'll be a close game because the Giants' defense has been a bit spicy with what Wink's calling, and I think Kayvon Thibodeau. He's been hurt, but he's been one of the best pass rushers this season. I think it'll be close, but give me Green Bay.
Yeah, Christian Watson, I don't think will play. He's struggled with hamstring injuries a lot. I don't think they'll want to risk it. Especially if the rest of the wide receiving group is fine. I don't see why they'd risk it. Love he's been finding open guys. He's not been forcing it to Watson, really. In the earlier weeks, he was, and Watson wasn't playing well, neither was he. They're getting on the page. Love's confident. He's spreading the ball. It's looking really nice on offense. I'm not screaming it from the hills just yet. I'm really happy to see we're playing like this, but I'm not over until we make the playoffs. If we make the playoffs, I'm not saying anything about this offense because it is the NFL. It can flip on a dime. We're playing nice. I'm going to pick us against the Giants. As you said, their defense, they're playing nicely now. Compared to what they were in the earlier weeks, there's a bit of, you wouldn't call it hype, but there's a bit more about them now. Whereas
Tommy DeVito's been their best quarterback this season.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Daniel Jones, but he has. I never thought they should have paid you in the first place. They're going to pick a quarterback this year in the draft. I'm sorry, you're not very good. A rookie undrafted quarterback from like Division 2 has been a better quarterback than you this season, mate. So
and that sums up what the Giants have been about. And they're I believe I think they are at home.
It's in New York. Obviously, hopefully no one gets injured. Obviously, the MetLife turf, that is, for the Packers, they can't lose anyone to injury in this game.
Don't start saying that. I like the Packers. The Packers are playing very nicely at the moment. We're on a nice little roll. If we win, we are controlling our destiny quite nicely. I think we will win to finish off week 14.
Awesome. Actually, if you do win, that will be Matt LaFleur's 17th straight December victory.
Yeah.
Yes, that's mental. 16-0 in December is such a weird stat. And obviously last year you fell away in January. But also the Lions of January, of course. But it's December. You had that run to try and make the playoffs ended last year, and you almost got there. And obviously the Green Bay have been a perennial playoff team the last couple of years with LaFleur as well, so it's why they've been so good in December. But that's just an outstanding record. And on that note, Ollie, I'm going to say goodbye to you, mate. It's been great to have you on the podcast. Obviously, you're welcome on back on at any time. Really, we'll have you on before the end of the season for sure, mate. So thank you for coming on, mate.
Thank you for the my first preview podcast. Like you said, good fun. Nice to pick the winners, dissect everything. So let's get the games going for week 14. Can't wait.
Awesome. This has been a Full 10 Yards NFL podcast. I've been your host, Sam Moores, and I will see you on Tuesday for a week 14 recap. Goodbye.